Welcome everyone to yet another edition of Plain Speak podcast. I'm Shivani Gupta. Today we're discussing what's transpired in Bengal and it has left almost everybody very worried. A lot of things have been said about the recent spate of violence over the Waqf Amendment Act in Bengal, especially in Murshidabad and surrounding areas. Why is this violence happening? What is at the root of this violence? And what's really happening to Bengal, not just socially, but politically speaking? We're going to discuss all of that with our very special guest joining us. I'm joined by Hindol Sengupta, who's multiple award-winning historian and author of 12 books. He's the professor of international relations at the OP Jindal University. So, Hindol, thanks a lot for joining us. I'm going to
Thank you,
read out
Shivani.
a series
Very
of
happy to be
tweets
here.
that you have done. Let me
Yes,
begin with the first one. You've said Bengalis were once like Subhash Bose, who
yes,
raised an army, like Baga Jatin, who fought a Royal Bengal tiger with his bare hands.
that's right.
Prafulla Chaki, master bomb thrower, and Surya Sen, who with a handful of schoolboys managed to kill 80 British soldiers.
Quite right.
Now we are terrified of a radical fake Aadhaar card protesters. What a shame. You know,
It
a
is a
lot of
shame.
a lot of people have been saying, Hindol, that what is happening to Hindus, because Hindus were once again the target of this violence in Murshidabad. What is happening to Hindus is because of their own fault, that they're responsible or guilty of their own fate in Bengal. Are you suggesting the same?
I think it's a very complicated historical situation which has brought Bengal to this point. As I mentioned in my tweet, Bengal was where the age of fire, the Agni Yug, transpired in India. Please remember the fiercest revolutionaries fighting the British all came from Bengal. They were the ones who were the best bomb makers, the best ammunitions makers, the best marksmen, people who could raise armies. Bagha Jatin, I mentioned. What is Bagha? Bagha is a Bagh, right? He got his name because he was able to fight a Royal Bengal tiger with his bare hands. Bengal has a very illustrious history of extremely martial people. People think of, the martial race only as the Punjabis, but no. Actually, the British were terrified in the Age of Fire, in the Agni Yug, of what Bengal was churning out. These were some of the best mercenaries revolutionaries fighting the British government, and they knew all the mercenary tactics. The tactics, for instance, used by Shivaji Maharaj, guerrilla warfare against the British. Many of these people studied the Maratha tactics and brought them into the jungles and fields of Bengal to fight the British. They were inspired by Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay's Anandamat, which is why they all sang Vande Mataram to the gallows when the British were able to catch one of them. Prafulla Chaki's skull, after the British hung him, was actually kept because they finally got one of the prize, people who were harassing them. The British used to keep his skull, it is said, in a police station in Calcutta, to warn other revolutionaries that they shouldn't, fight the empire. And yet, Bengalis would not stop. They fought relentlessly against empire. Now, my question is, what happened to that spirit?
But
Where did it all go?
that was the days of a revolution, quote
Exactly.
unquote. You're fighting against an external aggressor. Are you expecting Hindus to pick up arms and become mercenaries today?
Even during Direct Action Day, when Jinnah announced Direct Action Day, people like Gopal Patha and others got together and really fought back to protect themselves. What happened to that spirit? That is more recent than the revolutionary history, right? What happened to that spirit? Bengal has been infiltrated through illegal immigration for decades. The CPM used to do it, and now, of course, it happens absolutely openly.
In fact, Mamta used to be a big critic of the infiltration when the
And she
CPM
was
was in
right
power.
at that time. Only the question to ask is, what happened to that criticism? Why hasn't it stopped? You will remember a few years ago, bomb making units would be
Yes.
discovered in the homes and all these districts, Uttar Dinajpur, Malda, Murshidabad, all of these South 24 Parganas, all of these districts, this problem has festered on and on and on. And you see, what happened is, you have to understand this in context. Already there was a lot of infiltration, right? Then what happened is, as with Sheikh Hasina's era in power in Bangladesh, a lot of the most radicalized Jamaat elements and other elements, the most radical Islamists, began to get really pushed out of Dhaka and neighboring areas. Now, there was a time when they would flee to the Gulf, but there was pressure. The winds of change were coming to the Gulf also.
Yes.
The UAE didn't want these people, not at Saudi Arabia. Where would they go? They couldn't go to Pakistan. They used to try and go to, some of them went to the UK. That's why the UK has a big problem now. But most of them just crossed the border and came over to Bengal, where they are continuously radicalizing. Today, when I go to certain parts of Bengal, look, I grew up with Muslims in Calcutta and my school, during my school days, I still have great friends. They are indistinguishable from anyone in Calcutta. Everybody in Calcutta is a Bengali.
Yes.
Right? But this is a very different kind of people. You can see that they are not part of the organic system of Bengal. These radicalized people have come from the other side and they're continuously stoking trouble in all the border areas. Their dream has always been to, in a sense, further partition India and take one part into Bangladesh. Why is this not being stopped? I want to ask the question. There was this entire issue of fencing the border. A large part of the border has not been fenced yet because the state government is not allocating land. Who's responsible for this? Yes, the border security force is responsible for patrolling the border, but who's responsible for allocating the land on which the fencing has to happen?
No, given the political and the geostrategic plays that are at hand, we know what the situation is. We've been discussing it, and of course, the recent takeover of Bangladesh hasn't really helped the situation. A lot of that, in fact, all sides, all political sides believe the recent violence was, in fact, very much at the hands of Bangladeshis, quote unquote. What happened?
The Bangladesh interim administration today has radical Islamists sitting within that administration. People who were outside the administration
Are inside the government.
are today inside the government. Those people also hate Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, by the way. That's why in Dhanmondi his entire house has been burned down. All his sort of emblems across Dhaka are being torn down. So much so that even the BNP is scared today. Because if these guys come to power, they will attack everyone. So this is, look, Calcutta is a bubble, right? It really is a bubble. It always was. The Calcutta elite, I mean, God only knows what they think, right? But what is happening in these districts neighboring Bangladesh is extremely worrying. And large parts of these populations are getting completely radicalized. Yesterday, I heard the Chief Minister say
Yes.
that there are 40,000 imams in West Bengal and another maybe 20,000 muezzins. And then I went back and looked, there are 8,000 priests only. Now, I have to ask, you have to ask the question, all of these people get money from the government. I have to ask the question, where did all these imams come from? 40,000?
Versus 8,000 priests.
And even if you take 40,000 as an isolated number, 40,000? Are all of these people who are on government pay really supportive of India's integration?
Yeah.
How many of them are radicalized? How many of them are carrying fake papers? What kind of facilitation of people of fake papers coming from outside is happening in these districts in Bengal? There are no answers. You see, this entire kagoj amra dekhabo na, we will not show, kagaz nahi dikhayenge, we will not show the papers. Agitation that began in Bengal when CA and NRC happened. Why did it happen? It happened because they know the day there is a real check in these areas, countless people will be found who don't have the right papers, who are infiltrated from Bangladesh.
So why is the elite Bengali, as you call them, or the Bhadralok as they are known as, why are they, pretending that this is not a problem or this isn't a problem for them? Do they feel immune to the after effects of where this is going to lead? What is their thinking? Because there doesn't seem to be that much alarm in the so-called elite class of Bengal.
I think there are two things. One is very nicely, they have been put in a bubble. You see, it doesn't affect them. They don't care about what's happening in Malda and Murshidabad. They are in this bubble in Calcutta. There's another thing. The silent majority, even in Calcutta, knows what's going on. It's just that they're too scared. Please remember what has happened in Calcutta. Over 30, 40 years, some of the brightest young people left that city.
Yes.
That city has largely become a city of elderly people, or many of the people who couldn't get an opportunity to go anywhere else. So those people are stuck there, many of them. And the Calcutta elite, including the Tollygunge elite, they have been indoctrinated over 30, 40 years on this Marxist utopia of building this absolutely, uniform society where everybody is in perpetual bliss. Also, they believe in this entire thing about Epar Bangla, Opar Bangla, one day we will all come together. That's ridiculous. As I was telling you right before we began our conversation, please remember today, Bhagwant Mann, the Chief Minister of Punjab, and a Shehbaz Sharif or an Asim Munir also, in a sense, come from the same genetic profile in the same region, the Punjab. But they have entirely different perspectives. So, this is a myth. To believe this is absolute utopia, they have forced fed these people to believe this utopia, and they think that the North Indians are against them.
Yeah.
The Biharis are against them. The Jharkhand people are against them. No, in fact, the Biharis and the Jharkhand people and the people from Uttar Pradesh will save them. God forbid if another direct action day happens.
No, you keep mentioning Direct Action Day, and when you talk to people in Bengal, or let's say those who are, currently more amenable to the TMC point of view, because that's the party in power, they say all this Hindu khatre mein hai nonsense and this narrative is basically a political strategy to kind of, bring the Hindus under the BJP fold. But I do want to quote another one of your tweets. You say, such is the corruption and utter cowardice amongst many Bengalis in Kolkata that whenever they are thrashed, raped, gang raped, assaulted, and murdered, they call the violence mindless and the perpetrators unknown. So you're painting this picture of their mental status. But this whole narrative of Hindu khatre mein hai, and this whole thing that you're talking about of cowardice, first of all, this narrative of Hindu khatre mein hai, is it true? Is it true for Bengal? Because others would deny it.
Please look at the numbers. Forget what anybody else is saying. Look at the numbers of demographic shift in all of these districts. Please crunch the numbers. There are enough people doing these numbers all the time. The numbers will tell you the story. If demographic change consistently is happening in all these districts, and the numbers are getting deeply skewed, they tell their story. You don't need anybody else to come and say anything. Look at the numbers. The other thing is, of course, let's talk about Sandeshkhali, what happened there. What could we do about Sandeshkhali? You think justice has been done to Sandeshkhali? No, it's just that the case has got buried. And the same people who were the perpetrators of violence in Sandeshkhali will be out and about in no time. They are part and parcel. You see, what happened is, in the CPM era, the communist era, the top of the administration were all elite Bhadraloks. All of them could quote Nietzsche and, Bertrand Russell and this, that, and the other, right? The rest was all lumpen. What has happened today is, even that veneer of sophistication is gone. It is all entirely lumpen. I ask you this. Today, there are political leaders of the party that runs Bengal who are basically appealing on video with folded hands and begging that the violence should stop. Are you kidding me? The same people scream and shout and bring the house down in parliament every other day. Why can they not show that rigor and the feistiness and fire when their own state is burning? Because they know that the numbers have been skewed. They know, look, there are people in these riots that have openly come and said the administration cannot do anything to us because we run the administration. They are beholden to us. Why are they beholden to them? Because the numbers have got skewed. I'm sure you saw that other video of that other quote-unquote protester naming all the things that were supposedly under Waqf board. Eden Gardens, Raj Bhavan, where the governor sits. Are we genuinely saying Bengalis are happy with that? So there is a basic fundamental problem. And this problem is going to get much worse until it becomes better.
No, but this is the same problem we see in the elite, left liberal viewpoint. For example, the same madness is happening in America, where even illegal immigration, boundless illegal immigration is defended without looking at the consequences. It's not even about demography in terms of religion. But here in India, there is a certain set of people who don't want to look at how religious demography affects the very ethos of India. So if they were to accept that the demographic shift in these districts is a problem, they would have to accept that growing Muslim population is a problem, which is what they don't want to do.
But how can we? I mean, we are a country that was partitioned on the basis of religion. How can we not understand or accept that demographic shift is a problem? I mean, how can we deny this? It is ridiculous for us to deny this.
They don't want to accept the religious aspect of it.
But we were divided on that basis. India was literally partitioned on that basis. How was India partitioned? Majority areas were partitioned, and other majority areas, depending on demographics, were kept together. This is literally how we were partitioned.
So again, you're then pointing to the fact that if we don't stop this, or if we don't wake up to this, we are heading for another partition, localized partition.
I have no doubt that if illegal immigration continues the way it is continuing in the east of India, in Bengal, Assam today, it's more under control because the administration is far tougher. But including Assam and other parts of the northeast, if the illegal immigration that is happening today continues in the same manner, there will come a time, and mark my words, I hope this will be in the archives of your channel. There will come a time, if this does not stop, that the Indian Union will find it tough to hold on to these regions. It may not happen today, it may happen 10 years later, 20 years later, but stopping it would be very, very difficult. And all of us who have our heads in the sand like ostriches who deny this problem, tomorrow will say, you know what they will say? The same people at that time will say, this is democratic right. People should choose whatever sovereignty they want. This is their right to select whatever they want.
Yeah. It has been said for Kashmir for very long.
Exactly. So it's a very clear strategy. You change the demographics, you become a majority, and then of course it doesn't matter. It's a bit like minority rights don't matter in Pakistan because you've killed off all the minorities. If minorities itself don't exist, then minority rights don't exist. Minorities have to exist in a geography for their rights to exist. If you kill off and destroy all the minorities, then their rights don't matter.
So what we're discussing or witnessing today is another, a set of migration that has taken place. Of course, the TMC leaders have almost run it down by saying, oh, it's within Bengal. They're moving from one district in Bengal to another district in Bengal. We're talking about the Hindus in Murshidabad and other places.
May I just come here for a moment?
Yeah.
When the same thing happened in Uttar Pradesh, then we said this is exodus. Documentary films were made about this. And now we are saying it's from the same state. Look at the sheer hypocrisy of narratives.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, even today they say, oh, the great exodus from Muzaffarnagar.
Well, there's also other places in UP where Hindu exodus has also happened.
But that's my point. I mean, the narrative changes depending on who is the perpetrator and who is suffering the most.
Well, we know very clearly now, I mean, this is not even something that one has to say anymore, that there's a whole set of people who go quiet when something like Murshidabad happens. They'll just wait it out for a week or so, or ask people to wait it out, as has also happened. But I want to come back to the central issue. A lot of people, not just you, but a lot of other, thinkers, thought leaders are saying, what are Hindus of Bengal doing? So I come back to that issue. What are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to pick up arms today? Are they supposed to become revolutionaries and mercenaries today and not depend on the state to protect them? Has that situation come? Is that what is happening?
I will answer your question in two parts. My first part is when a Sandeshkhali happens and you're faced with murderous goons, you have to fight back with whatever you have. Tomorrow if somebody barges into your house and attacks you, attacks your family members, you will fight back with whatever weapons you have. That state has come, and Sandesh Khali showed us that.
But Hindus are not doing that in Bengal.
Of course not. Certainly not doing it enough.
Because
second-
they've been, your contention is that
Because
they've been
it's like-
brainwashed into thinking.
It's like the Stockholm syndrome. You are so scared and so fragmented that you're never coming together to truly fight back. Number two, a lot of strategic voting happens in Bengal, where groups come together and strategically vote on seats. Wherever there is a problem, there should be a strategic voting. I want to give you one example which is connected to Bengal. Allow me to give you this. I saw a lot of conversation about non-Muslims in the Waqf board,
Yeah.
right? It's very controversial. Fair enough. This is something that is an institution for a particular community, and that those community members should be part of it. No problem, right? However, in Bengal, when the same argument is made for Durga Puja committees, people will come and tell you, you're not secular. I don't have a problem with that also. Like I'm saying, the Bengalis I grew up with, who could be Muslim or Christian or Sikh or whatever, we were all Bengalis together. But I am telling you that in my frequent visits to Calcutta, the Bengalis I see, quote unquote, Bengalis outside Calcutta, especially in places like Murshidabad and Malda and Uttar Dinajpur and all these places, especially the border areas, they are unlike any Bengalis I ever knew in my entire growing up period in Bengal. They are distinctly different. In fact, they are not even like the educated, relatively, liberal Dhaka Bengalis that I know. They are particularly radicalized Islamists who are being pushed out of Bangladesh and finding constituencies in Bengal. We are foolish to ignore this. This will come and really damage us in future.
Well, a lot of people contend that Hindus vote a particular way in Bengal, right? And they've made their choices, or political choices, very clear. So politically and socially, would you say Hindus are themselves to blame for their fate today in Bengal?
I think there are two ways of looking at it once again, right? And I think, look, we have to be honest about these things. At the end of the day, how many political parties, apart from the parties that are active in Bengal, have even really offered proper leadership in Bengal? It's not enough to take your national leaders and try and win a state. It doesn't work in every state. It might work in certain states. It doesn't work in other states. Bengal requires serious Bengali leadership, local leadership. Where is that local leadership? Where has that local leadership been groomed? Where has that local leadership been given enough resources to continue a sustained campaign, which will one day lead to electoral change?
You're talking
There
about
is
the
no
BJP.
leadership. The BJP, does the Congress have that leadership? Why only the BJP? Does the Congress have an alternative leadership? In fact, today even the CPIM, which led Bengal for more than 3 decades, does not have leadership in Bengal.
So my question is, if if you believe that there is a certain kind of demographic attack on Hindus, are they waking up to that reality? What is the Bhadralok of Kolkata or Bengal thinking today? I asked this question on my show the other day. Are they fed up of the TMC rule? Are they fed up of the quote-unquote appeasement of Mamata Banerjee? That is not just appeasement in terms of where the money might be going disproportionately, to an imam versus a priest, but it's an appeasement that leads to a law and order situation, even leading to migration of Hindu families on a routine basis. I mean, this has happened 3 times in 4 years now in Bengal. So are they waking up to this quote-unquote reality?
So a lot of educated Bengalis in Calcutta often tell me that whether it's the BJP or the Congress or even the CPM, who their parents may have voted for, has no alternative leadership. they go with the incumbent political party in Bengal because they don't see any leadership. And I have to say, a bit like down south, there is a whole thing in Bengal about, Bengali culture, Bengali language, and so on and so forth. You cannot transplant people, into the Bengali, sort of milieu who don't even speak proper Bengali and have no cultural context and expect them to really win. This is never going to happen. You need young leadership from within Calcutta, within Bengal, so maybe from other parts of Bengal. Why just Calcutta? Who will emerge and take. But this takes time. I have to say one more thing. Last time when the BJP lost in Bengal, the big campaign that was run and then they lost, and when the real violence took place, the truth is a lot of people who ought to have been there
We're not there.
were not there.
And maybe the electorate felt abandoned, the ones who had voted for the
Absolutely.
BJP.
Because you have to, you see, I grew up with the violence of the CPM in Calcutta. I know what that violence was like and what a party state is all about. Today, if at all, when the cadre is loosened on the streets of Calcutta and outside, actually a lot of this violence happens outside Calcutta because Calcutta is a bubble and everybody wants to keep Calcutta pristine. When those mobs and those gangs hit the street, they are, if at all, they are worse than the CPM gangs. This is the real lumpen hordes. People ask, why do you need an Arjun Singh? You need an Arjun Singh because what Arjun Singh is fighting is also, much worse. Right? So you have to use that language because that is the language. Of course, in sophisticated conversations, it seems like, oh, well, why are people using violent language? But that's the language. You're going to get killed if you don't use that language.
So the message for Hindus today in Bengal is one.
And not just the Hindus. Remember, the Bengali Christians are not doing anywhere better. The Bengali Sikhs are not doing very better. Remember, Bengal is a place where one of the greatest singers of Shama Shongit, which is songs, devotional songs sung to the Mother Kali, was a Sikh singer. So Bengal used to have a real culture. All of that sadly is, greatly diminished today. But at the very least, in order to save whatever remains, there has to be a strategic plan to clean up this. If it doesn't, I go back to my earlier statement, 10 years, 20 years, both of us will be here. The Indian Union will find it tough.
There will
to
be
hold
another
on.
direct action day.
I have no doubt.
No, I mean, a strategic plan that you talk about, then, a lot of facets of society have to come together. The political, the social, the cultural, the intellectual. Everybody has to come together to fight against that. I'm not sure if that is possible. In our kind of democracy, in our kind of, politics and society, such kind of strategic, every, aspect coming together doesn't happen. But the point that you have made about cowardice creeping in to Bengali society, how do you deal with that? I mean,
Let me give you an
what do you
example.
do about that?
Let me give you
Because
an-
everybody has, people who have more to lose are the ones, who will do the least
For sure.
violence. But they may not be able to protect themselves from the violence.
Let me give you an example even at a state level. How large is the Calcutta Constabulary? At one point, the Calcutta police was said to be the best after Scotland Yard. Perhaps even better. All those days are, of course, gone. The Calcutta Constabulary, compared to, look at the threats that's coming. Even a politician, a Jamaat affiliated politician from within the current administration said, we will lock down Calcutta. And this has happened before. At any given notice, 1 lakh, 2 lakh, even 3 lakh people can be gathered on the streets of Calcutta, shutting the city down. How many people are there in the Calcutta Constabulary? 10,000? 20,000? It is impossible. I am telling you that the police force that exists in Bengal today already is so vastly outnumbered that if a real pressure point comes on the streets of Calcutta, they have no power to hold Calcutta. That is the honest truth. The only way in such a situation you can do it is if you are willing as a state to use heavy machine, fire and things like that against rioters.
Yeah.
But which state in their right mind will use heavy machine fire against their own citizens? Quote unquote their own citizens, at least with fake Aadhaar card, at least their own citizens. No one will. It's not possible. Therefore, the administration's abilities to control, there is a reason why people are going onto video platforms and saying "Hath jor kore," I'm folding my hands and begging you to stop, because they know they have no other power to stop it. Tomorrow, if 2 lakh people gather and start rioting in Calcutta, it is impossible to stop them. The Calcutta police and the local administration do not have the wherewithal to stop this. You will have to bring in serious force from outside.
But what does an ordinary citizen do in such a situation? Somebody who's going to be a target of this kind of a violence.
Become helpless, which is what they are.
Or
Or they genuinely come together
and fight.
in significant groups and fight back. Fight back doesn't always mean you take weapons and fight back, unless, of course, there's a riot, you do what you can. But you can fight strategically. You can fight via voting patterns. You can fight if there are people. I want to ask you a question. There are people who are, everybody knows who's affiliated to the radicals in an administration. Why do they continue to win elections? Because because of what I just told you, because of absolute inability to really make strategic moves.
So is it that they are foolish, or they don't
No,
see the
they-
bigger picture, or
They have no leadership.
they are more concerned about the here and now? And
They are
not the
concerned about it's a combination of all the things that you're talking about. They're concerned about the here and now. They're scared. If last time in the elections, it was so targeted that if apartment blocks did not vote
Yeah,
enough for
yeah.
the incumbent party, the next day goons reached those apartment blocks,
Yes.
threatening them that how dare people from your block not vote for you. Imagine if that apartment block has, say, 60 families. Out of those 60 families, 40 families are elderly retired people. What are they going to do? So, and as you yourself said, a large amount of this happens outside Calcutta. So the votes are coming from there. But unless this is strategically put together as a cohesive force, this can never change. Which is why I still believe, and it's very tough to do, I understand the legal complications. If this kind of violence continues, Bengal needs presidential rule. This can't happen again and again without any repercussions. I can understand happens once, happens twice, right? But if this continues again and again and again, every year there is something or the other,
Something has to
that
give.
means something is dramatically wrong there.
Let me ask you this: with repeated in such instances happening, I think this time there has been a realization even amongst the TMC, and very openly, as you said, these videos of appeal, etc., and acceptance of the fact that what happened was wrong from the TMC itself shows that they know that this was out of their hands and they couldn't have controlled it, and possibly didn't see it coming as well. Then there is, of course, this whole element of what happened in Bangladesh. The minds of the Bengali in India and the minds of the Bengali in Bangladesh, they've always been very together and synchronized. Do you think all of this is making the electorate or the citizenry in Bengal realize that something is clearly wrong and something clearly needs to be done?
I think for the first time in the recent past, especially after what happened in Bangladesh, I think the administration in Calcutta got a real fright when Sheikh Hasina was pushed out.
Yeah.
I think this was really, as they say, this was a moment when the penny dropped. And I think the administration in Calcutta knows very clearly what happened with Sheikh Hasina. Who are the people who got together? It's a mythical thing that it was a students' protest. I'm not saying students were not part of it.
Yeah, of
there were
course.
lots of students. But no student protest gets organized to this degree without external organizational forces. And the organizational forces were all radical Islamists.
But are Bengalis willing to accept the radical Islamist project? Are they willing to accept it truly?
You mean willing to see it for what it is?
Yeah.
I think more they are more so today than ever before. There is an awareness that something is going wrong. Even when I was listening to Mamata Banerjee give her long speech yesterday, I had a feeling listening to her that in a sense some penny has dropped. Because she kept on saying, no matter who causes violence, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, whatever, I will take the strongest action and I will find out who did this. I think she also realizes that something is going wrong.
Out of hand.
Something is out of hand.
Yeah.
You see, this is exactly like putting the genie out of the bottle.
Yeah.
You cultivate it. It's a bit like, the geopolitical analogy, perhaps slightly imperfect, but I think still there's a lot of, it's apt in many ways. You see, it's a bit like the Americans thought that in Afghanistan, they will build up this entire tribe of people who will fight the Soviets in the name of religion. Lo behold, those same people turn the guns against the Americans.
Yes.
So the same people that the CPM and the Trinamool and all these people cultivated and allowed for decades. Look, none of this happens in a day or two, right? This has happened for decades. Today has gone out of control. The genie is out of the bottle. You cannot put the genie back in.
Well, it's the classic snakes in your backyard analogy. Yeah. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. Certainly, a lot of people are beginning to feel, Hindol, including yourself, that there is a tipping point of sorts that is coming, politically, socially, culturally, for Bengal. We don't know exactly where it leads, but we certainly hope that there's a realization across all sides that lives of all kinds matter. And violence of this kind cannot be allowed to go unabated again and again and again. I have to leave it at that, but this is, of course, something...
You're absolutely right. And I just want to leave you by saying, you will be surprised how many of my friends who I went to school with, who are Bengali Muslims, living in Calcutta, highly educated, lawyers, this, that, doctors, how frightened they are of this. Let me end with this. There's a doctor, a kid who went to school with me and is now a very respected doctor. He called me one day and said that he was taking a train from somewhere. He had gone somewhere in the deep in Bengal, and he was taking a train back to Calcutta. And he said that the kind of people he saw in that train were people he could not have imagined ever in Bengal.
Okay.
And he really fears that this radicalization will come to Calcutta. And, let me tell you what he said. He said everybody thinks that, the Hindus and the Christians and the Sikhs, etc. will be attacked. But the first people they will attack are people like me, because they consider me and my children and my family to be not good Muslims. So the first line of attack will be people like me. People like me who, and these are Calcutta Bengalis, they go for Durga Puja also, and they go to church also, and this, that, and that. He said that the first line of attack will be on people like me, because they will string me up as an example of not good Muslims.
I understand where you're coming from and where your friend is coming from. So, this is exactly what they say. When, when the fall happens, secular, communal, it doesn't matter who you are or what you believe in. Everybody is going to come under the same attack. And it's people who have the most to lose that have to worry about this, because there's a certain element that doesn't have that much to lose when, things go out of hand. Let's leave it at that. We'll look forward to talking to you, Hindol, again. Let's see what happens in Bengal. But a pleasure talking to you. And thanks a lot for making time.
Thank you very much for calling me. Thanks, Shivani.
Thank you.
Take care.